No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of not just AEW Dynamite, but also AEW Rampage, which took place in Toronto, Canada at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. A rare sold-out crowd for AEW, over 6,000 fans in attendance for this one. Shout out to everybody watching this. I usually do not recap Rampage, but AEW decided to run an experiment, air Rampage live on TBS right after Dynamite went off the air. 3 straight live hours of AEW. How will the numbers be? Will Rampage be up from the usual Friday time slot? If it's a success, will this be the start of something in the future as far as regular 3-hour AEW shows go? It's going to be very interesting to see what type of numbers they pulled in for this. But let's get to it. We got Dynamite and Rampage to discuss. We kicked off the show with footage of Adam Copeland, Christian Cage arriving for their TNT title match. Okada arrived in a fancy car. And then we had Toni Schiavone interviewing Mercedes Moné. Mercedes got a good reaction. She talked about her setbacks, such as getting injured in her match against Willow Nightingale at the New Japan Pro Wrestling event. Mercedes put together a video package highlighting some of her moments over the past year before she got hurt. And she said a lot of what she said last week, that she's in AEW to lead a global revolution. And then she mentioned Julia Hart and Sky Blue. The lights went out. Julia was there. Sky Blue attempted to attack Mercedes from behind, but was not successful. Then Julia and Sky Blue got some chairs, but at this point we had Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander run down with chairs of their own to even the odds. Julia and Sky Blue disappeared, and then Willow had the chair and teased hitting Mercedes with the chair, but she did not do it. Mercedes yelled at her. She was angry, and she stormed off. I thought it was a good segment. I think Mercedes was a little rough with the promo. Wasn't her best work. Maybe it's just being gone for so long. She has to get back in the zone. She was never the best promo, but she did slip up a little bit, stuttered a little bit during her promo. I did like the video package just to hype her up a little bit and show some of her stuff in Japan and establish that there's history between her and Willow Nightingale. And I like the little angle. I mean, they're clearly setting up multiple matches for Mercedes, one versus Julia Hart, one versus Sky Blue at some point, and then, of course, Willow Nightingale. They have unfinished business. So I thought it was a solid segment. We had a backstage promo segment with Alex Marvez interviewing the Young Bucks and Okada. The Bucks wanted Alex to speak in Japanese, and the Bucks revealed that they were going to be Okada's personal backstage producers for his match against Eddie Kingston. Okada briefly talked in Japanese first and then in English. He said he's coming for Eddie's Continental title. We had Okada versus Eddie Kingston, which I thought was a good match. Not like an all-time classic or anything, but it was good. They had a feeling out process, and it was back and forth. You had the Bucks backstage on the headsets with AEW president Tony Khan making a little bit of a cameo. And then Okada gave Eddie a DDT on the floor. Eddie was struggling for a while to make a comeback, but eventually he got in some chops, and then he hit the spinning back fist, but could not make the cover right away. Okada got back up. They traded some shots. There were dueling chants for both guys. And eventually, Okada was able to hit the Rainmaker, got the 1-2-3 victory clean over Eddie Kingston to pick up the Continental Championship. And this was just for one title. Eddie Kingston's the Triple Crown Champion. So he's also the Ring of Honor World Champion and the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Champion. This was just for the Continental title, which is the third title. Kingston still has those titles. And now Okada has the Continental title. It was good. It was a good match. No surprise here that Okada was winning his first singles match, championship match, since officially becoming part of the AEW roster. I'm just surprised they didn't save it for the pay-per-view, but it looks like they're going in a different direction for Okada. Pac, who recently returned, showed up on the stage and had a little bit of a face-off with Okada. So looks like that might be the Dynasty pay-per-view match. They're going to set that up. We had Swerve Strickland backstage with Renee Paquette, and he talked about how Samoa Joe, the world champion, is running and ducking him, and he issued an open challenge to anybody that wanted to fight him later on in the show. And then Renee Paquette spoke with Willow and Chris Statlander backstage about the Rampage street fight, which was being hyped up as the main event for Rampage. I will say this right now. I'm a little surprised they decided to go with this match as the main event of Rampage. Like, if you're experimenting with a 3-hour block, one would think you would try to have a really compelling main event. Now, with all due respect to the ladies, they can go, and they definitely did in the main event of that Rampage show. We'll talk about that more later, but the women's match bombed on last week's Dynamite as far as viewers go. So I know you want to push the women and give them a higher profile position, but I probably would have gone with Okada and Kingston as the Rampage main event to try to keep people hooked till the end and do the big title match to close out the show. Just me. Anyways, Mercedes Moné came in and she had some words for both Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. And she said that Willow has done enough. She walked off. Stokely Hathaway was trying to get a handshake, but no go. We then had Hook versus Lionheart Chris Jericho. Jericho doing the Lionheart gimmick for whatever reason. I don't know. Hook got in a lot of offense here. He was taking Jericho to T-Bone Suplex City, tossing him around, and Jericho was acting at one point like he might not be able to continue. Jericho did get in some offense. He hit the Lion Salt, but could not make the cover right away. Hook applied the red rum in the corner. Jericho managed to escape and then went for the walls of Jericho, but Hook reversed it into an inside cradle and got the 1-2-3 victory. They're trying to elevate Hook, obviously. I just feel like we've seen this film before. We saw it with Action Andretti. We saw it with Powerhouse Hobbs. We saw it with Takeshita. All these guys beating Jericho. Did they really gain anything from those wins? So it's like they keep going to the well with Jericho, trying to use him to elevate people. We'll see. I mean, Jericho really put over Hook big time here. And then backstage, he said that Hook is a future world champion. and said he has a proposition for Hook on next week's Dynamite. We then had Adam Cole in a little vignette talking about how Wardlow disappointed him by losing to Samoa Joe last week on Dynamite. According to Cole, Wardlow had one job and he failed. And Cole said the new goal is for Wardlow to make sure the Kingdom hold on to the titles that they already have. And then said maybe they will forgive Wardlow for dropping the ball. We had Tony Schiavone interviewing Will by God Ospreay. Ospreay apologized for his behavior the last time he was in Canada at Forbidden Door when he was disrespecting the Canadian flag. He praised Bryan Danielson's match with Shibata from Collision this past Saturday, which was a well-received match, although it did have its critics too. If you're not a fan of the Japanese style matches where they both dare the other to hit them as hard as they can, if you're not a fan of that type of match, it wasn't your cup of tea. But anyways, Ospreay hyped up his match with Danielson at Dynasty and then challenged Shibata to a match for next week and said that Bryan can watch at home. Poor Shibata is going to lose again, although he did pick up a win. More on that in a few moments. We had a tag team match, women's match, Mariah May and Toni Storm going up against Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa. You had Luther out there interfering, and then Deonna Purrazzo was getting the upper hand. Thunder Rosa tagged in and basically took Deonna's thunder, so to speak, because Toni Storm hit the hip attack in the corner to Thunder Rosa and then went for a pile driver, but Thunder Rosa countered it, got the 1-2-3 victory, and Deonna was not pleased because she did the work to rebuild their momentum, and then Thunder Rosa comes in and gets the win. So they're teasing maybe a little bit of dissension between these two. We'll see if that goes anywhere, and maybe Thunder Rosa is going to get a title match against Toni Storm at this point or at some point. Keep in mind that Thunder Rosa relinquished the world title, never lost it. Maybe that'll be a match at Dynasty. We'll see. We then had Swerve Strickland's open challenge, which was answered by the Butcher. The Butcher, he's still a thing. Anyways, basically a squash match. Butcher got in a little bit of offense, but Swerve wasn't losing here. Swerve picked up a fairly easy victory. He hit the house call, came off the top with a big stomp, and then applied a submission, and they were acting like this was his first submission win, which I'll take their word for it. I like doing the submission victory just to condition fans to think that maybe a submission can end the match. I'm fine with that. We had him cut a promo afterwards saying he used to respect Samoa Joe, but now he's close to hating Joe. He's coming for Joe until he gets what he wants. And we all know that that's the AEW World title. Samoa Joe then showed up and said he will give Swerve what he wants. But then we had Don Callis coming out. Don Callis getting booed out of the building in his home country in Canada, which was pretty funny. And he said that maybe Takeshita needs to show Swerve what it's like to lose to the family. Swerve accepted the match. That's taking place on next week's Dynamite. And Swerve then said when he's done, he's coming for Samoa Joe. We then had our main event of Dynamite, not of the evening, but main event of Dynamite. Adam Copeland going up against Christian Cage, settling their feud in Toronto. I Quit match. Crowd was loving this. They were singing Adam Copeland's song. They knew the lyrics to this, and the crowd chanted "Holy shit" when the match started. They fought in the crowd right off the bat, and Copeland found a hockey jersey. I guess it's a team, the Bruins. I'm not a hockey person, so I'm not even sure where they're located, but he put this Bruins jersey on Christian, and then he put on the Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. I'm familiar with that one. And they got into a hockey fight, a actual hockey fight in Canada in a hockey arena. I mean, it was fitting. And there were lots of hockey props used in this match. There was a hockey stick, and they even had one of those nets that Christian was thrown into. And we had ladders. We had tables. Crowd was chanting TLC. Copeland ended up slamming Christian on a ladder bridge, and then a table was set up on the outside, and it was laid out sideways, and Christian jumped off the top rope to the outside with a crossbody, putting Copeland through the table, and Copeland was bleeding. They got back in the ring. They hit each other with a double spear. We had a commercial break, and when we came back, they fought by the stage, and then Mama Wayne interfered. Christian grabbed a barbed wire covered chair from under the ring, wanted to do a concerto with it, but Copeland was able to avoid it. And then Copeland used the hockey stick for a crossface. He grabbed a wire or some kind of string, whatever the hell it was, from his tights, and he was trying to choke out Christian. Christian would not quit, though. It was an I Quit match. Christian stayed in it, and I think at one point he even said, "I'm not a loser like Toronto, people in Toronto," something like that. And then we had more interference. We had Kill Switch and Nick Wayne. No surprise here that they were interfering. Then we had a few friends make the save. Daddy Magic and Daniel Garcia ran down. They evened the odds. And then Copeland climbed up a ladder, jumped over the top rope onto Garcia and Killswitch, got them back in the ring, and then they handcuffed everybody. All three guys were handcuffed in different corners. Mama Wayne took her leave. She gave up. She was no longer going to fight the good fight. What else could she do? And then Copeland, he started kicking Christian in the balls. Christian still would not quit. And then he pulled out Spike. He used Spike, hit Christian low with Spike. Christian still didn't give up. And then Copeland went for the headshot, and Christian finally gave up. He said he quit. Adam Copeland, officially your TNT champion for the second time. It was a hell of a match. And thank you, JJ. Boston Bruins. There you go. So that was the whole deal with that. Had no idea where the Bruins were located. Like, I literally know like 3 hockey teams. But thank you for that, JJ. This was an excellent match. Pay-per-view quality, and I think it was one of the best matches in Dynamite history. The setting, doing it in Toronto instead of the pay-per-view, was probably the right move, seeing how everything played out. It got to stand out on Dynamite, and it was a really fun moment to see Copeland and Christian settle their score. Did the title need to be on the line? No, but maybe Copeland will put over somebody when he drops the title, and that guy can become a made man. We'll see what happens. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Shout out to Caleb Jacobs, who sent in a $2.24 super chat. I appreciate that. It says, 2-time TNT champion Adam Copeland, instant classic. Yeah, the main event was excellent. I would give the main event an A+. The rest of the show was pretty solid. I maybe would go for a B as far as the rest of the show went. But the main event definitely elevated it a lot. So I'm going with an A minus for this week's Dynamite. Um, Great show overall, very entertaining, and a few things that they're doing differently. Like at one point, they had Renee Paquette standing by the ramp, and she was talking into the camera right before Eddie Kingston made his entrance. So I like that they're trying some different things. And during that Willow and Chris Statlander backstage promo, they would zoom in on each person as they were talking and then zoom back out, which is a different way of shooting these interviews from what has been done before. So I like that. I like that they're trying some different things visually with the show. You know, they got the new set and everything, the new logos. I think that's definitely a positive. So now let's talk about Rampage. It was all right. It was mostly filler. It was more or less, maybe slightly above what a normal Rampage card would look like. And I don't really watch Rampage, but I do read the spoilers and post them on No DQ every week. So I'm aware of what they put on the show. It felt like maybe a slightly above average Rampage as far as the quality of the matches. You had Best Friends, Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta versus Will Hobbs and Kyle Fletcher in a tournament match, tag team title tournament match, and it was a good match. The only thing is, I forgot the other team that the winners are going against, but I know they're a heel team, which to me gave away the finish of this one, that Orange Cassidy and Trent would win. But it was a good match. Hobbs did a lot of power moves and was looking very impressive. He busted out a torture rack. And then they got rid of Hobbs by doing a beach break and stomp combo on the outside of the ring. And then they got back in the ring and finished off they finished off Fletcher, double teamed him. Orange Cassidy pinned Fletcher with the orange punch. So yeah, it was good, predictable, but solid match. Then we had Shibata in a squash match, and I mentioned this earlier. He's facing Will Ospreay next week. I mean, this is just to give him a win after he lost to Danielson, and he's inevitably going to lose to Ospreay next Wednesday. So give him a win here. You know, just a squash match, nothing to it. Then we had Takeshita, who has a match on next Wednesday's Dynamite, going up against Swerve, probably losing. I would say almost certainly losing to Swerve as they're building up Swerve for the world title. Takeshita versus Rocky Romero. It was a good match, more competitive, but to me, this was like another squash match that they dragged out. You know, it could have been a 2-minute match. With all due respect to Rocky Romero, I know he's popular as an international wrestler, but I mean, to me, he was like a small step above that guy that Shibata squashed. I mean, it was longer than it needed to be. Don Callis got involved. This is a match where I would argue let the Blue Thunder Bomb be the finish. Of course, it wasn't. Rocky Romero kicked out. Doesn't matter if you're Sami Zayn or Takeshita. People kick out of the Blue Thunder Bomb. So why do you keep trying? It never works. Crowd did like the match, though. They were chanting, "This is awesome." I'm like, it's a good match. I don't know if I would say it's awesome, but it was good. And Takeshita won with the Falcon Arrow. Longer than it needed to be. We then had our main event of Rampage, and they had Mark Henry doing the little video package introduction. I'm not sure if he's been doing that regularly or not. I know that was a gimmick since the beginning. Willow, Nightingale, and Chris Statlander against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Street fight. This was a very good match for the women. The only thing is, like, it kind of felt lackluster after Adam Copeland and Christian. You know, you got the chairs out there, you got the table spots, which we already saw in that match. So I feel like maybe they should have done like a cage match or some other type of stipulation match besides a street fight right after doing an I Quit match with a lot of the same props like chairs and tables. So that would be my small criticism. The women did a great job, though. It was a very entertaining main event. And Julia pulled out a spike at one point, accidentally hit Sky Blue, and then after the break, Sky Blue gave Willow a code blue on the announce table, and then got some thumbtacks. And Statlander ended up being power bombed onto thumbtacks. She managed to kick out of that. And then Sky Blue put some thumbtacks in Statlander's mouth and kicked her in the face, taking a page out of the Young Bucks' playbook. She even got the "You Sick F" chants. And then Willow got rid of Sky Blue with a DVD off the apron through two tables. So it was down to Julia and Chris Statlander. Julia was put on a pile of chairs, and Chris went for a 450, but she missed. And then Julia got the win with the Heartless submission. I enjoyed the match. I still think I would have done a different stipulation and maybe put Kingston and Okada in the Rampage main event spot. But then if the number bombed, then they'd have no excuses. Well, Okada's not a draw, and it would be a mess for them. So maybe they didn't want to take that chance. If it's a good number, they'll be pleasantly surprised. And if the number bombs, then they can just say, "Oh yeah, women don't draw," whatever. So Rampage was fine. The last match, definitely worth checking out. The Orange Cassidy match was good, but not necessarily something you had to watch. And then you had some filler in between. Oh, I totally forgot about the promo segment. The Rampage started with a Bullet Club vignette. They were in a swimming pool, and Jay White has a gold bat, and they were celebrating Darby Allin being injured and being unable now, legitimately unable, because he broke his foot. He cannot climb Mount Everest. So they were gloating about that. And then they had a skeleton version of Darby Allin coming down this water slide in the pool. And then we had the Acclaimed come out in front of the fans and issue a response to Jay White and Bullet Club Gold. And they brought up MJF. I mean, Bowens was talking about all of Jay White's failures in AEW. Maybe he should have signed somewhere else. A little reference to WWE. Talked about how Bowens lost the Continental Classic, or not Bowens. Bowens said that White lost the Continental Classic and then lost to MJF when MJF had one good leg. So maybe that means MJF's coming back soon. They referenced him. And then they said that Jay White has nobody to blame but himself for his shortcomings. And then they flipped him off to end the segment. So it was a decent Rampage. If I'm grading Rampage by itself, B-. That was all right. The main event was the best thing about the 1 hour Rampage. And all in all, 3 hours, it was very good. It was a very good 3 hour block. I don't know if I want another 3 hour block regularly, though. The only thing I would like, if they are going to eventually do this, if this experiment is a success and Rampage does a pretty solid number, I would like to see Rampage have a little bit more star power and have the actual main event be a very high profile match. So you have a reason to stick around to the end, don't do the normal Rampage format. Then it's just going to fizzle out. People will not watch it. So that's my recommendation if they do this, which they might. I don't I don't know if the Rampage number will do a whole lot better. Like, what have they been doing? Like 350,000 viewers? They might do more. I mean, I would say if they do like 600,000, that's a success. I mean, that's considerably better than what they're doing on Friday nights. Even if they did 500,000, that's better than what they do on Friday nights. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see if this experiment works out for them or not. If it drops down to, 350, 400,000, they might as well just keep it on Fridays. So anyways, thank you all so much for tuning into this recap. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up on YouTube. Tell a friend, spread the word. I am going to be doing 13 nights of live streaming, 13 straight nights in a row. You could see the schedule right there, plus the other live streams coming up between now and the 31st. But starting on the 31st, 13 straight nights of streaming. So make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. NoDQ.com/YouTube. Have a great night, everyone. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.